Hello friends, welcome to day 3 of Organizational Leadership and Change Management. My name is Alex Wiseman. I'm excited that you're really almost halfway through. You're more than a third of the way through, or you're about a third of the way through. So that's good news, right? Today's theme is the structural and human resource frames. We are, of course, referring to Bowman and Deal's 4 frames, the first 2 of which are structural and human resource. And so we're going to dive into those today in a pretty significant way. First thing we want to do is understand the key characteristics and patterns of the structural and human resource frames. And that's really just the most basic level of Bloom's taxonomy. We want you to know it, to basically recognize it. Not asking for a lot of critical thinking just from this objective, but we do want you to have all that information packed in there so that you can do some critical thinking and critical decision making using that information when you have to. The next thing we're going to focus on is having you be able to articulate a real-world example of how the structural and or human resource frames can be used to analyze organizational situations or events and appropriately plan policy or action. So this is where the critical thinking comes in, and you need to be able to plan and evaluate and apply and all the way up to synthesize that information and be able to make use of it in a way that is tailored for your unique situation. So there's a big ask for today. It also is going to be another challenging day of preparation. You have 98 pages of reading. You have 33 minutes of watching to get through today, and I want you to make sure that you are giving yourself enough time to do that. So please feel free to start ahead. If you're watching this anytime before, the day before day 3, please feel free to go ahead and start on the reading. I hope you've been working on this all along. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a module on the structural frame, a module on the human resource frame, and a module on framing organizational issues in education. So exactly what we talked about in our objectives. We're going to understand the characteristics and patterns of these 2 frames, and then you're going to use your understanding to make some meaning out of a real-world situation and some examples that we're going to take from a Philadelphia school. So in Module 3.1, the structural frame, I'm going to ask you to look through 3 chapters from Bowman and Deal, chapters 3, 4, and 5. These are all dealing with the structural frame. One of them is very basic. One of them is about structuring and restructuring, so change involved in that. One is about groups and teams specifically. I cannot emphasize how rich the text is. Bowman and Deal is not a light choice for a textbook. It's a real choice. It's a reference that not only covers their own perspective on things, but also synthesizes and summarizes and presents to you in meaningful ways the organizational understanding of literally decades and decades of research and practice dedicated to this topic. So I think you'll get a lot out of it. And then to cap all that off, I have a very short 1.5 minute video from Steve Jobs towards the end of his career and unfortunately his life, talking about organizational structure for Apple. Now, since you have just spent a significant amount of time reading these 3 chapters on the structural frame and organizational structure as a part of that, these 1.5 minutes should be pretty either enlightening or easy to get through, because you will know, aha, he is coming at it from this perspective. But what's unique about this is thinking about not only how do you understand what he's saying and what he's describing for Apple based on your sort of newfound understanding of the structural frame, but how do you critique that, and how do you modify that in order to see how that would work in an educational setting or in a school district or in whatever your own real-world context might be. And we have a similar challenge with our human resource frame. I'm asking you to read 3 chapters, same thing as before. There's going to be one that's a little more descriptive, one that's a little more about change, one that's a little more about some of the specifics related to the people in the organization. That's not a shock for the human resource frame. And then I'm going to ask you to watch, this time a little longer video, a 4-minute video with a younger Steve Jobs, talking about his human resources style and some of the people that worked for him in the 1980s. And you'll see from this video, some of the fashion suggests that it is the early 80s, talking about their human resources philosophy. And again, I want you to try to filter this through your newfound understanding of what the human resource frame says, what are the different approaches, how can you critique it, and how might you adapt or modify this in order to fit an educational organizational setting. Finally, Module 3.3, you're going to take a look at framing organizational issues by looking at Strawberry Mansion High School in Philadelphia. I don't know how much you know about Strawberry Mansion High School. It is, well, you're going to learn a little bit about it in these videos. There are some videos from ABC News. In fact, these first two are from ABC News, where they go into the school and sort of give a report on some of the challenges that the school is having. As you might have guessed from the titles of these videos, if you didn't already know about the school, it has its own set of challenges. And so those are certainly not unique challenges to this school only. There are many schools that have similar challenges to this. This happens to be one that is highlighted for us. And then I'm going to ask you to look at this longer, about 17-minute video of the principal of Strawberry Mansion High School talking about change and how to fix a broken school. But it's really about how do we change the organization. What is and she's going to be talking about it in educational terminology. What are the educational things as well as the organizational things that we are doing or have done that have led to changes. That is going to be, I think, fascinating for us to think about the structure and the people, right? The structural frame and human resource frame, and how each of those components goes into the decisions and the changes that she and her team have implemented. Then you're going to go into application activities. Now remember, before class today, I want you to do the online quiz for today's modules. There is a lot of reading material for today, and so I want to point out this quiz is long with extra O's in it. The quiz itself, I'm trying to remember, it's got maybe 30 questions. So give yourself some advanced time to work on it. This isn't one that you're just going to click through in under a minute. You're probably going to spend a little time on it. Remember, the quizzes are not meant to be difficult. They're meant to help you focus on and understand the key concepts from the reading. So you might want to do the online quiz in conjunction with your reading, or make sure that you're taking an approach that makes sense for you. Then I would like for you to take the free online personality test linked here. I'm just going to link to it really quick so you can see what that looks like. It's from this website, 16personalities.com. It will give you results that are a version of the Myers-Briggs test, which you will be familiar with after your reading of the Human Resource Frame chapters if you aren't already familiar with it. I would like for you to note which type you are when it is finished. For example, the first time I ever took this, I was an INTJ. When I just took it, actually a couple days ago, when I was putting this link on here, I was an INFP. So I've switched dramatically. But there's a change, and that means something. And so I'd like for you to note what your type is and bring that to class so we can discuss it. I'd also like for you to provide a written draft of your intuitive theory of action. Use Mintrop's Chapter 3 as inspiration. Again, there will be examples of what I'm asking you to do in Chapter 3 of Rick Mintrop's book. So please make sure you look at that. And of course, you can ask me any questions you have about that if you are having questions before it's due. Now, getting ready for class, this is where I normally talk about the case studies. And so we're doing something unique today. Yesterday, you had a straight-up case study and a really in-depth one. Today, we're going to do a more unique style of case study. I still want you to refer to modules 0.1 and 0.3 on the Start Here page if you have questions about how to prepare. So the preparation part is very similar. The materials you have, instead of one 30-page document to read through, I would like for you to rewatch the 3 videos above in Module 3.3 about Strawberry Mansion High School in Philadelphia and its principal, Linda Cleat-Wayman. Then, I want you to visit the Pennsylvania School Performance Profile for Strawberry Mansion High School, which is linked right here. I'm going to click on it to show you what it looks like. This is from the Pennsylvania Department of Education website. And I would like for you to look through this information. This is the kind of information you have available to you when you're using state level data, or any kind of, sometimes district level data will look similar to this. It's going to give you all the basics about the school, about the Career and Technical Center, about intermediate units, about the ethnic background of students, the types of student groups: economically disadvantaged, English learners, special ed, so groups in particular that require extra resources, percent enrollment by gender, other reports that will have reference to the school in it. And there are also several different tabs. So this was the Fast Facts tab, but there's the Scoring tab, and it will give you information about how scoring effectiveness is done. Then you will have the Academic Performance tab, which will give you the results of scoring, and you can see the building level academic score is 39.9, not great. And you'll see other indicators here, so take a look at those. You'll see some comparison data, so you can show a school in the same district to compare performance. And I mean, you can pick literally any one that you want. So if you know, and there are lots of pages here, if you know a school in Philadelphia that you'd like specifically to compare Strawberry Mansion High School with, you can do that. I'm just going to pick one, the very first one, just to show you what that looks like. Compare schools, there we go. And it will give you the data for Strawberry Mansion and then the Academy at Palumbo, so you can see what the differences are. These two probably couldn't be more different in many ways. Then we have the school supports section, and you can see what resources are available. You have to sometimes click and click and click and click, and then it will have a link to something there. You can view historical data, so you can look at trends over time. That's a little different. Remember, we're in the compare link here, and instead of comparing one school to another, you're comparing the same school across different academic years. So take some time to look through this section and get to know Strawberry Mansion High School as well as you can. Then I want you to read two short news stories. They're both linked here. I'll link on one so you can see what it looks like. It's going to take you to the Inquirer at Philly.com, and it is an article about Strawberry Mansion High School. And of course, there are going to be pop-up ads. Sorry about that. Nearly Empty is being phased out. What's next? So you'll get some of the latest news. This is just from earlier in the year. March 27th, so that should give you some interesting information to make some decisions about Strawberry Mansion High School. Remember, you're looking for ways to understand what's happening at Strawberry Mansion High School through the structural and human resource frames. Lastly, if you have any questions, bring them to class, but I would love for you to make comments and share reflections about today's objectives, learning, application, activities, etc. in the leave a reply section here below. Remember that at this point you should have all posted, so it's not a problem, but remember that the first time you post, I have to approve it before it shows up online. So if you see a delay between when you post and when it shows up online, it's probably because it's waiting to be approved. All right, we've got a big day ahead of us, an exciting day, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you all soon. So get going on this, and I'll see you in class.